What's going on, everybody? I am Dom at Screen Static, and the Penguin just dropped. The Penguin just dropped, and the Penguin is a spinoff of the Batman show, and it stars Colin Farrell in unrecognizable makeup. And it just literally just dropped, and I finished watching it like 10 minutes ago. And so we're gonna talk about it. It's gonna be an after show, and I got a guest with me, my man, D movie man. We're gonna bring him in. What's going on, man?
Hey, what's going on?
How you doing?
I am good. Uh, definitely, definitely feeling slight PTSD after watching this first episode of Penguin, but I'm also here for the conversation. So yeah, we can go from there. But I appreciate you having me.
No, no problem, no problem, man. You have the blessed honor of being my first guest on my first live ever. So
Oh wow.
yeah, so you get a front row seat to all of these technical difficulties I'm about to
Hey, no,
have.
no worries. It's all a part of the process. I
Yes,
appreciate you
sir.
having me.
No, I appreciate you showing up. So, first, let's get I want to get a general idea of your thoughts on first the Batman, because this is a spinoff of Matt Reeves' The Batman that came out in 2022. And how did you feel about that movie?
So first, let me say that Batman has been a part of my life since I was maybe 2, maybe 3 years old. And that was like my general introduction to superheroes and I say this all the time, and I couldn't tell you which one came first, but because it feels like I watched them simultaneously all at the same time. But Batman Returns, Batman Mask of the Phantasm, and then Batman the Animated Series. And
Oh,
so that is what introduced me to superheroes in general. And then that was like my uh, just attachment to Batman and that entire world. Actually, I even had and still have uh, one of those when they used to have for the kids where you would have a book and a tape that would read the book
oh
along
yeah,
with you.
yeah.
Yeah, and so they had one for Batman the animated series called Plants of Peril. It involved poison ivy, and I remember it was interesting because my mom had a massive living room full of plants. So after reading that, it was just kind of like I won't say I was scared, but I was definitely giving the plants a side after that. Like, what's really going on? Like,
Hey, what
what's
y'all
really
about
going
to
on
do?
here?
What
Right,
y'all about to
exactly.
do?
So and and I've seen of course the mass the variety of different Batman projects we've gotten throughout the years. So, but I will say, by the time we got to the Batman, especially after Batman versus Superman, and just all the shenanigans we've gotten with DC, I was kind of on the fence. Like visually, it looked great, but I was just like, oh
Right.
lord, like, is it gonna feel like and when I say a rehash, it's like we've seen different variations, but I think sometimes when you see so many different variations, you just wonder like how can you bring something new to what we've seen in this world so many times before. So I was intrigued, but I was kind of on the fence about it. And honestly, when it came down to it, I thought it was pretty spectacular. I thought it was just something so striking and unique and memorable just about the way that they crafted the world. And I think what I appreciated most, and I won't claim to know that much about the source material when it comes down to the actual comics, but I do know there is kind of like this noirish detective piece when it comes to Batman
Mhm.
and just kind of cracking the case, uncovering mysteries. And that's something I love in general, like whether it's reading or general storytelling. So that was just something that I found it just felt like we were breathing new life into something we had seen, like I said, in so many different versions and adaptations. And I also thought I can understand it probably towards the end felt like it was maybe stretching things a little bit. But I also say for as long as it ended up being, I was pretty much invested the entire time. So I think, yeah. So my experience with the Batman was pretty positive.
That's what's up. That's what's up. And I'm like you, where I got introduced to it at a very young age. I think my first was Batman the animated series was of course my first. I was a big Justice League fan. My favorite superhero of all time is always Superman and always will be Superman.
Mhm.
But I always love when because they're like brothers and they're like the opposite attracts thing. They would make a great buddy cop movie if they ever
Yes.
made a Superman Batman movie. But I love Batman. He's a great hero, and I love all the Batman movies. I love all the iterations of Batman. But you're right in the fact that sometimes we can. It's only so many times I can watch Martha's pearls hit the floor.
Oh my
Uh,
gosh.
it's
Yes.
only so much that I can watch, and this was a great, to me, like you said, kind of not a deviation, but just a new take.
Mhm. Right.
In the sense it was a new approach. This was to me the one of the more holistic approaches to Batman, in the sense that we got the detective and we got the fighter, and so this was much more a detective movie, and it was David Finchery and
Mhm.
all kind of Seven vibes, and I was really here for it. I really liked it. And as far as Colin Farrell and the Penguin character, I'm not gonna say I knew that they were gonna give him a spinoff show, because of course who did,
Mhm.
but I thought that him doing such a dramatic change, like with all the makeup and the prosthetics,
Mhm.
for a character that didn't get that much screen time, he wasn't even that integral to the plot of the Batman. I thought that, so I wasn't surprised that he got a TV show. I thought that they were going to expand his role in like the sequel, and so I was like,
Right.
oh, they're just setting him up to be like the kingpin of Gotham in the sequel. But when we
Mhm.
found out we got a series, and Matt Reeves says this is supposed to connect
Mhm.
the Batman and the Batman sequel, I thought that that was really cool, and I really appreciated his character and what he did.
Mhm.
And now we got the show, and now we got the first episode, and they said it's a limited series, so we'll see how And it really picks up like a week after the Batman. Like
Right.
we hit the ground running, where like we see pretty much the end of the Batman, and then they jump to like a week later, and that's where the show picks up, and we meet Oz, where they call him Oz Cobb, because the character's name is Oswald Cobblepot, but they call him Oz Cobb in
Mhm.
the show to make it grittier and more grounded, I
Mhm.
guess. But we meet him, and we see the devastation of the what the Riddler did in the spillway, and we see like the political ramifications on the news, and we see, of course, the rich people are fine and untouched, like we see
Mhm.
with so many disasters. And it's the underprivileged and the downtrodden in the downtown area, basically, is the most affected.
Right.
And so we pick up with Oz right in the immediate aftermath, and and I feel like the plot kind of keeps going,
Mhm.
and that's how the show starts. But before we get into like the play-by-play of the episode, how did you feel about this episode? Like your general thoughts. How did you feel about Penguin and Colin Farrell's performance, and like just how this overall episode introduced us into this new part of Gotham?
Yeah, so I am a slow burn type of guy. So I think what I appreciate, it all comes down to how you do it. But I think that any franchise that is ripe with storytelling opportunities, I like delving into the side stories.
Mm,
So, like with Star Wars, for example, of course, there's the whole Skywalker saga and all that. But and I obviously read a lot of the Star Wars books, and my favorite ones were Tales from Jabba's Palace, Tales from the Mos Eisley Cantina. I think there was
mm-hmm,
another story about Darth Maul, Shadow Hunter, but it was like these side, these kind of side stories that seemingly don't play, like they are a part of the story, but they're these side characters that no one really knows about or really focuses on, or don't really get the spotlight, so to speak. And so I think that when it comes to Gotham, there are so many different uh, levels to what Gotham is and what it represents, the people, the faces, the villain. Like there's so much to Gotham. And so I think just being able to just delve again into this world, but not necessarily having it be about Bruce Wayne or Batman or some of those other characters we're familiar with, and kind of like bring it in. It's like, okay, what does this underworld look like? How does it function? And like, what are these kind of like I don't know, like what are the different factions? Like what are the different what's the hierarchy? What's the working order? Like how is this going to continue to press forward? And to me, I just think maybe getting into those details, though, that to me was really, really interesting. I can see where for some, because I don't know, everyone has a different idea of what is I don't know. Everybody has an idea of what should keep their attention. So I can understand to some this probably wasn't fast paced, but I appreciated setting the scene for Oz's eventual rise. And it seems very out of the realm of possibility right now, considering what's happening. And even the way that they jump in with him making a very rash decision. I was kind of shocked by some of this decisions and just the way we set the scene for his character. So I enjoyed it, but I know this is just the beginning. So yeah.
No, that's how I felt too. And like you said, I'm good for a slow burn show. And I love a rise to power show. Like the first two seasons of House of Cards
Mm-hmm.
are amazing to me. And I love to see like a character rise the ranks. And I love to see like the machinations and the behind the scenes. And that's what one thing I did like about the show is they show Oz as a very capable person. He's very quick on his feet. He's very he can talk his way, and they even mentioned like he talks his way out of a lot of situations. And he reminds me kind of like Tyrion from Game of Thrones in the sense of like, he's somebody who's not physically as capable, but
Mm-hmm.
so he kind of makes up for it with his wits, and he's quick on his feet. He manipulates a lot of people. So in that sense, I was all for it, and I liked that we get to see that epic because the movies are where the action is. You know what I'm saying? The movies, we can get all the action, the fast pace, and the films, but when we have 8 hours to tell the story, they can take a little bit of time. And I didn't feel like you said, this was a steady paced episode, but I didn't feel like it was slow. I
Mm-hmm.
didn't. There was no point where I was bored, and so I was engaged the whole time. And true, after getting off of work and staying up, I could have fell asleep, but I didn't. So that's a good mark on the show. But we in the beginning of the show, Oz is going back to his iceberg lounge, which isn't really his. He's just kind of the proprietor of it. He even says as much in the Batman. But he goes back to the lounge, back to the loft to get some things in the stash there, and we see that he has some jewels there and some. But what's really important, I feel like what they were trying to set up is the jewels and the valuables are the secondary thing. He wasn't really there for those. He was there to get this folder that had all this dirt, and we see him as like starting to put chess pieces in play. I felt like this episode showed him putting a lot of pieces in play,
Mm-hmm.
and we'll start to see the effects of those. But hold on, I'm trying to do two things at once. Okay, so we see him, getting this stuff, and in the folder we one of the Falcone crime boss like top men. So we see the guy who's actually from House of Cards, and he later on sends these pictures off to somebody else. But we see him already, like this is a week after this has happened, and he's
Mm-hmm.
already moving and shaking. And then the Falcone's son, and we find out in the news footage in the beginning that his son has is the heir apparent. Now that his dad's dead, he's gonna take up the mantle, and it's kind of like a succession type of situation, like with
Mm-hmm.
Kendall Roy, or he's probably the youngest brother, but kind of like with the child who doesn't have really the wherewithal or is capable, but
Yeah.
is now just the assumed head, and he pops in on Oz. How did you feel about this scene? And what did you take away from this exchange that he had with Albert Falcone?
Uh, well, the first thing I have to say, like, and you kind of touched on this, but I like that the obviously when he has his break-in moment, the fact that the jewels were secondary, I guess it depends on the person, but some will look at the jewels and have that, it's like, oh, this is obviously like something of great value. But when you think about this world, knowledge is power, and really in
Mm-hmm.
life I would say knowledge is power, but everyone has a different idea of what power is. But um but Oz recognizes that knowledge is power, and when you have people's secrets, and when you have, when you have things you can weaponize against people, that can make you, that gives you, that's immediate access, that's immediate power. So that in and of itself, I thought was really interesting. As far as the conversation, because I definitely wasn't expecting. Uh, it was it Alberto.
I think it's yeah. I think it's Alberto.
Yeah, but yeah, wasn't expecting him to suddenly pop up, but I do think as far as that conversation, I guess to me it was I guess it was interesting to me, kind of thinking and believing that Oz kind of had the upper hand in the situation. Like, oh, okay, he's going to smooth this over. He's going to come up with has a solution in place, and then Alberto just kind of throws that all, like, just kind of like throws that all in his face at the very very end, and then Oz's, I guess, base instincts, shall we say, they suddenly come to the forefront, and he's kind of like, okay, I've done that, and then it's like, oh, I've done that. And then it's like, oh, we cut to the, so I don't know. I just thought it was a really interesting way to establish everything, because I was actually shocked, because I assumed it was going to be some bigger, I don't know. I thought it was going to be like the beginning of some kind of cat and mouse situation, or some kind of power play, something. I didn't know it was going to be the point where Alberto was going to be like, oh, well, guess what? And then the guns were going to come out. So I just think the way they use that scene to kind of show Oz's ruthlessness, and maybe Alberto's naivete, or maybe ignorance in the situation, that was really what stood out to me. And like I said, it was surprising to me, because you couldn't have told me that would have been like ongoing story just from the beginning of that conversation.
Yeah, and when we see these type of characters like Alberto, who's trying to take over the family business, usually it's a protracted thing. Usually we have to see them like mess up, and Oz
Mhm.
will be like behind the scenes pulling the strings or something like that. I thought we were gonna get something like that. Like he
Mhm.
was gonna be like the puppet master for a
Right.
while, but no. And I think, yeah, like you pointed out, they showed Oz's ruthlessness in this scene, but also I think his what his weakness is, in the
Hmm.
sense of like his impulsiveness,
Yes.
because he is quick on his feet, and he kind of has to be if he's gonna be pulling the trigger that quick like that and take it out. Because he was like, you saw the realization hit his face, like,
Mhm.
ah, man. But I felt this was probably right in the beginning. This was probably one of my favorite scenes, because Colin Farrell was acting right when he
Yeah.
was telling the story about the old mob boss, and the camera was just pushing in. I thought we were gonna cut to like a flashback or something, but it just pushed in and stayed on his face, and he sold it. And I really appreciate that. That was for him to be able to deliver that performance with all that makeup and prosthetic on. I think just adds to how good of an actor he is.
Yeah.
And there was a point, because I read comics and I love comics, but I'm not the encyclopedia. But I did pick up on a couple things. When he was talking about the old mob boss, the name he mentioned was Rex Calabrese, which is um he has a daughter named Selena Calabrese, who changed her name to Selena Kyle, who
Oh
is,
wow.
yeah, it was Catwoman. And so they dropped Catwoman's father, they name dropped him. And so I wonder, I don't know if that was just like, a throwaway for the fans, or if that is, leading down to something. Maybe we'll see Zoe Kravitz show up down and maybe in the season finale or something like that. That would be cool if we could see,
Yes.
something like that. But after Oz does this impulsive act, now he has to immediately switch and take care of it. So he immediately zips up the body. And I like the fact that in the beginning he was trying to like hold the body and take it down the stairs, but with his walking impediment, he was like, you know what, forget it. It's just too, and and it it showed. There's I don't know if you've ever seen this interview with Matt Damon, and he's talking about Jack Nicholson
Mhm.
in The Departed, and how Jack Nicholson is changing the scene where there's a scene where he shoots a woman and the woman lays down, and Jack Nicholson is like adding his own lines
Mhm.
to say like, "Ooh, well, she fell funny." which is type to indicate how much he does this and how casual it is for him just to shoot this lady. And that's what I was thinking of in this scene, because he just seems so casual, like the casualness in which he carries out this body and puts it in the trunk and all this type of stuff just shows again like the other side of how ruthless he is. Like, this is another day at the office. Like, yeah, I'm putting out, but like once I got over the fact of who this is that I killed, the fact that I killed somebody is he knows exactly where to dump it, exactly what to do. And I just,
Hmm.
that to me just shows the experience of this character and probably why Alberto underestimated him, because like, yeah, he's always worked for your dad, but he's been around.
Right.
And then we go outside and we meet Vic. Then he's with a gang of kids and they're trying to boost uh Oz's car and take his rims, and he ends up shooting at him, and he puts a bullet hole in his own Maserati. That hurt my heart. It wasn't even my car that hurt my heart. I was
Right.
like, that's not gonna be cheap. That's not gonna be cheap. But this scene was interesting because to me, we see him kind of adopt this kid,
Hmm.
and over the course of this scene and the next couple scenes, he kind of really gets attached to this kid really quickly because he takes him to see his mom and all the type of stuff. And so it really to me was like an inverted Oz adopting this kid was like an inverted Batman, in my opinion, because it was like he got his own little twisted Robin, his own little mob Robin.
Right.
and and so I like that parallel because it's like, let me take you under my wing, let me show you, and I'm using you for my own purpose, but I'm also getting attached to you. And not just this scene, but just him and Vic and their attachment and their arc over the show. How did you feel about that, and how did you feel about how they executed that?
Now, that definitely was something that was surprising for me. With trailers and things like that, I have to kind of limit. It's tough because I like trailers, but I have to limit
Yeah,
my exposure because sometimes
you
sometimes
get too much.
it can pull
Yeah.
you in, but other times it can kind of disrupt and you kind of see a little too much. So I
Hmm.
had only seen but like a few flashes here and there, and given the story and especially the introduction. Um, Vic's introduction was something that was surprising. Like, I'm not sure if you've seen the film Gloria, but it's this situation, or even if you've seen Proud Mary, which I think is maybe partly inspired by Gloria, but that whole dynamic where you have a hitman or someone involved in the mob or mafia, that underworld, and their attachments to a child or someone,
Hmm.
preteen, teenager, whatever you want to call it, and the complications of that, because you
Hmm.
have something developing between these two people in the midst of a world that is very, volatile, violent, dangerous, literally danger around every corner. So it was surprising to me because I didn't think that would be a part of the story. I'm here for it because I appreciate the dimension of that and just the dynamic of that. Because, like I said, what Oz represents, what his world represents, and then now what this kid who seemingly is just trying to make some money, he now is thrust into, like he is now being thrown headfirst into all of this, and he has no
Hmm.
idea what he's really in for. But then we kind of learn as we go on that they have more similarities, and there are things that Oz sees in him that kind of mirrors or at least parallels his own life. So I thought it was a interesting way to go, but it was definitely surprising given what I was expecting, at least from the beginning.
No, yeah, I wasn't expecting him to have an innocence. Like, I mean, a lot of times with these type of shows, with especially with the world that's so dense and already kind of lived in, they do kind of give us a character that's the audience. So
Mhm.
the main character has a reason to explain everything,
Right.
so we can hear it. But like you said, I did not expect him to have, especially a young sidekick like that. And you're right with a lot of, and it's in a lot of movies, like you always need a young innocent person to
Mhm.
soften you up, even if we go back to like Man on Fire
Mhm.
and stuff like that. So you always need a young fresh face. And I feel like Vic might be the more dramatic arc over the season, because we're
Mhm.
going to see Oz, rise up the ranks. but I don't think him as a person will change that much. Maybe
Right.
he'll soften, Vic will soften him up some, but I don't think he'll change that much as a person. But I think Vic, we might see Vic change, and
Mhm.
that might be how we experience Oz and how much he changes Vic in the sense of like Vic will become more ruthless, he'll
Mhm.
become more involved in the business, and like seeing Vic take his first life might, you know what I'm saying? It might be a seminal moment like this. So I think the drama and the stakes of the show might be felt through Vic because and I can already see because this is a comic book movie, regardless of how gritty and realistic it is. This is a comic book show. And at some point, Vic's gonna get kidnapped or get held hostage,
Right.
and, and Penguin's gonna have to like make a decision, and that'll be like a nice little moment of character growth.
Yes.
But not only so Vic is the first main character we get introduced to outside of Oz. The next one is the other Falcone child, which is man, I forgot this lady's name. Sophia
Yes, Sophia.
Falcone. Yeah. Sophia Falcone, because Oz gets called up to the main house, called up to the big house, called up to the office. And he's there just to be told his operations is being shut down and you gotta pack up and move. But then we see Sophia, who is fresh out of Arkham, and they talk about how she's a serial killer. Like she is a known, documented, and convicted serial killer who went
Mhm.
by the Hangman. And her and Oz have a couple different exchanges throughout the episode. And we see that they have some history, and it seems like he's the one that turned her in. He's the one that got her sent to Arkham in the first place. And so they have an exchange at the house, and then they go to dinner, and then we see an exchange with them at the end of the episode. And how did you feel about Sophia as a character, her introduction, and how do you feel about her presence in the show?
So first, let me say that the fact that Sophia is being played by Kristen Milioti, that was already exciting enough because that was one of the few little clips I did see. I saw that she was going to be a part of this, and I'm already a fan of hers because of the HBO series. I believe it was Made for Love, and then I
Mm.
think Peacock had a series called The Resort that she was also a part of, and she's a very I don't know, she's just an actress I find to be very captivating. There's something just very quirky and interesting just about the way that she just navigates the characters. But of course, Sophia is a far cry from these other two characters she portrayed, and I just think it's something very I don't know, and I guess maybe I'm a little biased because I'm already a fan of hers, but I find Sophia to be a very compelling character, mainly because she is, I don't know, like for everything that you might think that Oz is or might be, um, it's kind of like when you kind of think you're the big fish in the situation or potentially the big fish. I'm going to hope, Dom, that you are coming back, but I'm going to continue to talk. But yes, I will say that I'm excited to see the development of Sophia because I'm actually interested. I don't know if they're going to hint at it, but I'm really interested in seeing how they explain like her backstory or what they'll hint at because I've already seen like flashes of her character, her past, especially in Arkham. So I'm really interested in seeing how that's going to turn out. But yes, for the most part, I am enjoying Sophia, and it's interesting to see how she does have eyes on the ropes, so to speak. Like she knows the game, she knows what's going on, and yeah, like she has it figured out. So yeah, I'm really enjoying that aspect of it. And I just think it's a really solid show overall. Am I'm wondering like what else they could do to expand this and then how this whole limited series piece is going to tie back into the film itself. That'll be something I really want to see. I am. I mean, I won't say I'm spinning my wheels. I am a little bit because I'm trying to. I'm trying to figure out where Dom is. And hopefully everything is okay as far as his internet connection and everything else. And he'll be hopping back in again very soon. I hope you all are having okay. I'm gonna go to break one. Okay. Okay.
All right, all right. I am sorry about that. Like I said, first stream ever, technical difficulties, so everything just wanted to go wrong. So hold on, I'm gonna bring back boy D 1 second. All right, D, I'm back.
Okay. But yeah, no worries, no worries. It's all a part of the process. And the best thing is you get to learn from it. So and that's the
Yeah,
part that's not fun,
look,
but it's beneficial.
yes, sir.
Yeah.
Yeah, we only going up from here. So every stream gonna get better. That's what we gonna do.
Right, absolutely. But yeah, no, I was basically saying, I don't know how much of that you heard after you were off, but I was basically saying with me being, a fan of Kristen Miliotti's, I was already a fan. I was already a fan of hers anyway, but I'm I like the fact that the power dynamic has now shifted. Like Oz is thinking like, okay, I gained some traction. I'm making my way up there. I'm making the deals, and then she just, and even just the way like he's in focus, and all you see is just someone making their way up and coming into focus, and it's just like, yeah, no. And very quickly, she really puts Oz back in his place. Like she knows the game, she knows what's up, she has it all figured out. And I'm really interested. Excuse me. Another thing I had said was I'm interested to see what her, if they're going to touch on her backstory as the Hangman, or because I
Mm-hmm.
know I saw a couple of shots of her in Arkham. But yeah, I'm really enjoying Sophia. I think the fact that she is such, I mean, we say ruthless in one sense, but the fact that she seemingly has no barrier, well, she has no moral barriers as far as
Mm-hmm.
and even you would think maybe Oz doesn't. Vic is kind of going against that. Is It's kind of providing more of a space to where it's like, I don't necessarily have to do the thing I always do, but there are base instincts that Sophia has acted on time and time and time again. I think in and out of Arkham. So now seeing what that means for Oz is, I found that to be very intriguing and really fun to watch.
No, definitely. And like you said, yeah, that shot of her coming just right behind her, and then she just kind of stood there and stayed out of focus was incredibly intimidating. And it was, especially for, it's to me, it's easy for a big, like a Batman, a big, strong, muscular man to seem intimidating, but the unassuming woman to come in the room and just command the room
Hmm.
is what was, it was incredible. And I think, like you said, that she doesn't have the same moral code as Oz at all. And you see, we see like hints of it with Oz, like how he treats Vic, but also like when they got on the train and he wouldn't sit in the handicap section. Like
Hmm.
just the little tidbits showed that, yeah, he's not a monster. This is a
Hmm.
monster. This
Hmm.
is not to be messed with. Like
Right.
I was just out here for power and some money, but Sophia's out here for a whole different thing, and
Hmm.
and so I'm curious to see how far they will show her going, like how far she'll go in the show, and
Hmm.
just to, because just the one scene at the end when they were putting like the wire under, I was like, I've
Yeah.
seen a few torture scenes in my day. That's one of the time that was, I was like, when they make you squirm in your
Mhm.
seat when they not just, I was like, that's a good, that's a new one. I haven't seen that one before.
Yes.
But so we see, how do you feel? I want to ask about Oz's, I guess, grander plan, because like we said, we see him with the folder in the beginning. We see him go and visit Sal Maroni and give him the ring that he got off of Al's body. And then we see that at the end, the setup of him delivering Al's body
Mhm.
and making it Maroni, making it seem like it was Maroni. And
Mhm.
he did all of that without anybody's consent. He didn't tell anybody he was going to do it. He just kind of put all of these in motion. And how did you feel about that as like Oz's plan? And because sometimes you have a character that's supposed to be smart, but
Mhm.
then their plans don't always land. Or it's like, why would you do that when you could have just did this? How do you feel about Oz as his intellect overall as a character, and about how he kind of laid out this plan?
I mean, I'm sure, I mean, as we see, I think that I'm sure I'm assuming we're gonna see more of this, but I know with whatever level of intelligence Oz does have, there's that whole other side that he has to resist, which is going to cloud his his judgment about decisions he makes. Now, I think hopefully he learned. I mean, either way, he has to deal with the consequences of his actions because he's done this. So
Mm-hmm.
maybe that will help. But I also know this probably won't be the last time, especially considering what his mother says to reinforce that. Which that in itself was a moment, I thought, just as far as what she tells him. But I'll have to say, I was impressed because the thing is, I know obviously this is the first episode, right? So I already
Right.
know like as far as I know. I mean, I know the man's not going to be taken out, but I'm like, I'm hoping. I think it's too soon for him to get seriously maimed, to lose a limb, possibly. So it's kind of like, so what's like, how are we going to get out of this situation? So and for a second, I was like, I know Vic isn't has more sense than to drive up,
Yeah.
in this location. And so no, so then kind of figuring it out, the whole thing with the ring, and then the finger being gone, I was like, I thought that was I don't know, like I don't know, I was what I don't even know what the word is, but I was surprised. I'll just say I was surprised by it, and the fact that they are what they're digging into as far as these the fact that he was able to kind of tie it back into the rivalry that
Hmm.
exists, and how he was able to, in a sense. Now, I don't think he's going to be completely out of the woods, obviously, but the fact that he was able to kind of take the heat off himself by doing that, and it's just like, oh, payback. Surely I couldn't have done this thing, and now even when he's at the worst possible situation, it's just, and then the way he even smiles after he hears her scream, he's like, all right.
Yeah.
So
That worked.
I'm here for it, but I think it's just going to be a matter of seeing the balancing act with that, because there is intelligence there is craftiness and plans, but there are other pieces on the chessboard, if you will.
No, definitely. And I like the fact with this planning, I like the fact that it seemed like this was he was kind of coming up with it as he went along. Because when he
Hmm.
took the ring, he didn't have this plan because
Right.
this was more of a reaction to Sophia showing up, and he was like,
Mhm.
"All right, oh, my mic, okay." But so now, so the fact that he was able to like take the ring and know I'll need this later, and
Mhm.
then be able to implement it and put all this stuff into motion
Mhm.
shows, yeah, like you said, a very high intellect and a very craftiness, and I think that'll. I, I think that'll be a lot of this show is us skating by the skin of his teeth,
Mhm.
and but yeah, but balancing that against his impulses and probably Vic's inexperience, and a lot of that will get him into, and then you got the vulnerability of his mom, so all of that will kind of jumble together of the show, and
Mhm.
so I'm curious about that, but I'm excited to see that. I'm excited to see that with this show. This was just like we say, this was just the first episode. This was the so we don't know exactly how it's going to tie into the Batman yet, or what we're going to get at the end of it. But how do you what are you expecting from based on this first episode? What are you really expecting going forward, and what are you, I guess, hoping to see going forward?
Ooh, okay. Um, well, one thing I'm expecting is to see how I don't know, like how Maroney ooh, and I don't know, like I'm expecting just to see. What I'm expecting to see is how Oz manages to play all these people against each other. Just how he's able to continue to move around the pieces on the chessboard, while seemingly playing the role of, oh my gosh, I'm just a pawn in the situation. I don't know what's going on, and that letting these people believe they're in control. Meanwhile, he is continuing to move those pieces. So I think I'm just expecting more in that regard. And I think that in and of itself is interesting. But I also am expecting, of course, and hoping, of course, to see more from Sophia as far as like what her journey has been. Because, like I said, she's a very worrisome character. I mean, she's intriguing and she's cool to watch, but she's also like, uh, Like she's not someone I would want to run into on a dark night, you know, at all, or you know what, at any time of day. She's just not someone who's space I would want to be in at all. So, oh, what were you saying? Okay, hear you. My bad.
No, I was saying being scary in the daytime is a talent. Is a I'm like
Exactly.
it's easy to be scary at night, but if she was menacing in the daytime, it was crazy.
Yeah. And I
Do you?
also say really oh, I'm sorry. I was going to
No,
say
no,
really
go.
quickly.
Go ahead.
I also am expecting definitely to see some more references, either Easter eggs or some kind of tie-ins to other characters or other references or someone we may have seen, you know, folks we've seen from, of course, the film.
Hmm.
I'm interested, or potentially, I don't know if that's going to be thinking too far ahead, or characters we have yet to see. I think that would be interesting too.
Yeah, no, I feel kind of the same way in the sense that as far as like characters moving forward, like I wonder if we might see like I don't want to say minor characters, but like maybe people like Commissioner. Well, I don't think he's Commissioner yet, but like
Mhm.
Gordon
Go
somebody like that who's on the police. I feel like we might get to see something like that. With Sophia, going back to Sophia for a second, would you how would you feel? Would you want to see her like a flashback of her like as the hangman or her back in those days, or would you like it to keep like just as a reference, just as people something reference or maybe a story, or would you like to actually have a flashback and go see it?
So here's the thing. I'm again, this is a personal bias because I am a sucker for a flashback. I'm a sucker for a prequel in
Hmm.
theory. Now I understand
Yeah,
some aren't great. Some aren't great, some aren't necessary, but just in general, I do enjoy seeing, even if it's brief, even if it's, you know, just very a temporary moment. I do enjoy seeing some semblance of either what a character has done, who they've been before, or something that has played into who they are now. So it is something I would like to see. I would understand if they kept it in the here and now to not distract, but given what her history is, I would, even if it's like I said, if it's only briefly, I would like to see it personally.
I would like to see it too. Like I said, I'm a sucker for flashback. I'm very much a sucker for a prequel, like you said, in concept. Like if you tell me you're gonna do a prequel, I'll be interested in it and just hope you
Mhm.
execute it right. I think they should show at the very least.
Oh, mute
Oh, my bad, man. This is crazy. But maybe they should show at the very least, like the whatever she did,
Mm.
whatever she did right before she went to Arkham.
Right,
Like that final one maybe, and then show how she's changed now or how she's gotten more ruthless somehow.
right.
Now I think that will like hints
Mhm.
and Easter eggs of maybe the next villain. I don't know if we've gotten confirmed what Batman 2's villain is,
Right.
but I would be interested in, cameos and references don't make the story good if the story's not good. But we're
Right.
assuming the story is going to be good, and
Yes.
maybe if they like introduce somebody like Victor Freeze, just as a character, so
Mhm.
then maybe down the line we can see him turn into a villain or something like that. I would be interested in something like that,
Yes.
because this world is so grounded. Seeing how they interpret characters who are
Mhm.
kind of fantastical in a grounded way would be cool.
Right.
But with this first episode with the penguin, are there any other things that you had about the episode that kind of stood out to you?
Oh, well, just the fact that they had, one of my it's like the fact they had one of my jams playing, and it's one of those that came out of nowhere. It's like I didn't grow it's weird because it's not something I grew up listening to, but it was like maybe like the midway point, not quite childhood, but like kinda getting more so into, like maybe, like a little more into high school. But, them ending with 9 to 5 and then referencing 9 to 4. I thought that was hilarious, and it's one of those things where, you know, I like the song, and it's one of those things where also I never understood how relatable the song was. Maybe it's because I'm at this age and I
Hmm.
know what it is to be working like literally the lyrics of that song, like things you experienced in the workplace, and it's just taking and no giving and all that other stuff. Like anyway, but yeah, but that was something I enjoyed. And like I said, that scene with his mother kind of reinforcing and kind of, letting us in on the type of person she is. I always think it's interesting when characters do that. You remember American Gangster?
Hmm.
The
Very
scene
much.
with Ruby D, Frank's mother, in that
Yes.
scene where she like clocks like clocks him,
Yeah,
and
she
she
didn't miss it.
gets very, yeah, and she gets very like in that scene. And granted, this she isn't. I mean, in a sense, his mother is as well, but she's kind of like not like, because I think there are plenty of mothers who'd be like, no, you make the right decisions, and this is what you do, and how could you do that? That was so dumb. And she's just like, no, 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 no. There was a reason why you did that. And so if this is your opportunity, what are you going to do with it? And I just thought that was just like, well, all right, we see a little bit of an origin story here, because I'm just like, it takes I don't know, it takes a special kind of person to reinforce their child ending someone's life and having that philosophy about it. So yeah, that was a moment I thought.
No, definitely. And obviously if you take the subject matter out of it and just the scene itself when he was going back to his mom's, it
Mhm.
reminded me it so clearly of I don't know if you saw the Kanye West documentary series, The Genius
Oh,
on
oh,
Netflix.
okay.
Okay, but there's a scene, especially in the first part, where he is young. He's still the producer Kanye,
Mhm.
and and he goes back. He's in New York, but he goes back to Chicago to his mom.
Mhm.
And the scene between him and his mom is very much like this scene where it's like a refocus, like he's down. He's because
Mhm.
he was trying to become a rapper, but nobody was trying to give him any. He was like, no, just be a producer. And his mom was like reinforcing, like, no, you are great, you can do this,
Mhm.
and nobody's gonna stop you. And then he left like with his chest poked out and like with and, like almost like Matt Reeves watched that. It was so similar that
Mhm.
that's all I could think of. But yeah, it takes a unique individual to uh feed life into somebody who just took somebody out
Right.
and be like, yeah, that was good, don't feel bad about that.
Right. Exactly. Yeah. Wow.
Yeah. But that was the first episode of The Penguin on HBO Max, and that was this first episode of the after show. So D, I appreciate you for coming out and showing love and talking with me, and tell the people where they can find you and what to look forward to over where on your side of the internet.
All right. Well, yes. Hey, everyone. This is D Movie Man, fellow cinephile, popcorn addict, and emerging film critic, coming to you with reliable recaps, reviews, and reactions. And if you have not heard that tagline before, that is the summation of what I do over on my channel. I love discussing all things film. I love, getting into my movie reviews. I like reacting to a trailer occasionally. I like discussing and recapping some shows that I really, really enjoy, which of course now is going to include The Penguin. But yes, as far as my most recent content, I recently kicked off a series of alternative casting where I'm getting into and currently making crafting my next maybe 2 or 3 videos discussing some of the casting behind some of some of your favorite movies, some of the most popular movies. And I did that with Beetlejuice ahead of the Beetlejuice sequel release. I did a review for that as well. Had a chance to go to New York. And did a little bit of a vlog, movie viewing while I was there for the film Skincare. I also I also had the fortunate experience watching The Front Room. You can check out my thoughts on that as well. And most recently, I just filmed my reviews for Your Monster, Exhibiting Forgiveness, and I just saw The Substance today, and I am, already working and editing my review for that. So lots of good things coming, and I would love to have you. Please feel free to check me out. That is capital D period space capital MOVIEMAN. Would love to have you.
Thank you. And yeah, and I'm Screen Static, and we'll be here. I'll be here every Thursday to talk about Penguin. And D, you always welcome back. If you want to come next time, it'll be a little less chaotic next time.
Oh, I am
And
definitely down whenever.
cool. Appreciate it. And I will catch you guys next time. Appreciate it.